And we're live.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 14 of Capes and Commentaries. I'm Tyler Baker. Of course, with me as always is Nasty Nate Kennedy. By God, because I demanded it, not you, we are doing the Unstoppable Juggernaut episode.
Oh yeah, no, I'm perfectly fine with it. I just think that it's funny that not even half an hour ago we started and did episode 13, and right before we started, he's like, "What episode is this? It's 13, right?" I was like, "No, man, it's 14. Get with it." But then again, I would probably be the same way. It's always present
Well,
on my
unless it's a
computer screen for me.
responsibility to me immediately, I don't pay attention to it. So I'm like, it's like that with any scenario. It's at work or what in personal life or whatever. If I'm not deemed you're in charge of this, I'm like, okay, and I don't worry about anybody else's responsibility.
I mean, that makes sense.
So unless this is an extremely like you must not forget this number, and of course Nathan didn't put that kind of emphasis on it, which is why I forgot it. So anyway, yes, but we are here to do. We are jumping ahead a bit just because I didn't feel like we must do like in continuity, and because it's in my top 3 episodes, the Unstoppable Juggernaut. It's been a favorite of mine since I first saw it in its original airing. It just had a major impact on me because of I had no idea that what the episode was going to be. I just knew it was a new episode, and when I saw the Juggernaut and Colossus in the same episode, I just lost my shit. I remember what I was doing that day. I remember I was collecting donations for Boy Scouts that morning. I'm like going through the motions of doing that, and coming back and plopping down, and we were going to go bowling later that afternoon, and then I'm greeted with this unbelievable episode of X-Men. It was hard to process of the excitement I was going through because it was just Juggernaut. I thought was such a tremendous villain as a kid. Colossus I thought was tremendous because of the X-Men video game, the arcade game, I should say, not the Nintendo game.
Yeah, that was always disappointing because I remember going and playing the arcade game and then finding out, oh, it's on Nintendo, and I was kind of just thinking like, with the Turtles arcade game, and eventually they came out with Turtles the arcade game on NES. I was sort of spoiled. That was the word I was trying to think of, which is why there was so much dead air there. I was like just spoiled by the fact that it was a pretty decent translation. Like obviously it's not going to look as good as the arcade, but it was very similar too. So when I found out that X-Men is on Nintendo, I went and rented it and plopped it in, and I'm like, what is this? This is not the arcade game at all. This sucks.
Yeah, and I didn't when I rented it, I didn't think of it as like this is a transition of the arcade. I just thought, oh, an X-Men game for Nintendo, I gotta play it. It was pretty.
It was
damn
bad.
sure. Like,
It
yeah,
was bad.
it was
Just that
bad.
top-down view. It was kind of hard to tell what anything really was. What an
Yeah, and
awful game.
it was, and I think it's universally hated as well. Maybe not as much as the Silver Surfer game, which I did play that as a kid.
That game's
But
really difficult.
but it was cool to be able to pick whatever level you wanted. I mean, I did appreciate that, but it was hard as hell. Anybody who's watched the Angry Video Game Nerd knows what I'm talking about. The X-Men game for Sega, I did get to play it at Josh Rapp's house, the big X-Men fanatic. I had to beg him to let me play it.
I was about to ask, did he even let you play it?
Hell, I mean, it was almost like clockwork. You could predict that he wouldn't be in the mood to play any Sega in general. But I got him to let me play, he would want to play first. It was just that kind of scenario. Like, all right, but I get to play first, and
I would have
so
probably
just
done the same thing to you if we were friends when we were younger. Because I was
yeah, you probably would have.
I was so stingy with my shit. That one of the drawbacks of being an only child. Wasn't he an only child as well?
He had an older sister, and I think much older sibling too as well.
So
But I
more
never
or
saw
less,
him.
he was almost kind of like an only child in a way.
When I knew him, his sister was a full-grown teenager who had a major crush on. So Josh was the guy that got all the X-Men toys, X-Men comics, and also got the Power Rangers when they came out on the scene. Like he had all the figures, the Zords and all that stuff. So that was quite envious of that regard. And he had Sega. You know.
Yeah, so basically, we had two Joshes in our lives that were our friends that both had everything Power Rangers and had a lot of the Sega stuff that we wish that we had as a kid.
Yeah, I didn't desire to have Sega because I was Super Nintendo, but Sega would always get games like the X-Men game that I would really want to try and play, and that's the only way you could do it is if you know. And I was intrigued by Sonic the Hedgehog, and
Yeah, well,
you know,
well, for me, it was kind of like when Sega CD came out. I was really like, oh man, I really need to. But I would go to his house and play that Jurassic Park game, and man, like he had Toy Story on
yeah,
Genesis, which played a little bit better than the one on Super Nintendo. And there was that one year for Christmas. I was like, man, I really hope I got like a Genesis because at the time that the Saturn was about to come out, and the Genesis was at the end of its life cycle, and it was. I'll have to look up what board game it was, but I because it was like the same shape box and everything as the Genesis. And I was like, yeah, and then I opened it and it was just utter disappointment. Like I was like, oh man, it wasn't a Genesis. But then it was okay because a year later is when I got like the PS1, and then after that got an N64. So the Genesis just got further pushed back in my mind.
yeah. It was just I had two friends who had the Sega, so if I want to get my Sega fix, I just wait until I went over to their house and I would play it there because nothing was gonna make me change from Super Nintendo.
But
And as long
that
and back then we had arcades around still, like
yeah,
like Jolly Time slash Pocket Change, which had the X Men arcade game, WrestleFest, the Simpsons arcade game, and a lot of the other classic games too. So I could always get my fix with that as well.
but that
But
Genesis X-Men game was actually pretty decent. From what I
yeah, it looked
recall.
great. I remember our buddy Joe Amato's got a story that I'm sure this would probably be the only time Joe would actually want to join us, so that way he could pull out his pipe and reflect and like project his thoughts about the day that he beat the X-Men game for Sega Genesis
Well,
or
we'll
something
ask him.
like that.
We'll ask him about it on our next episode of Beyond Retro, which will be tomorrow night.
I think I've already heard him tell like multiple times already.
Well,
But anyway, before we get into the Juggernaut episode, the X-Men arcade game I think is universally loved by everybody. I don't know of anybody who didn't enjoy playing that game. Um, I even asked Larry too if the game was based off the Pride of the X-Men, and had we got a full series, like that's what Nimrod would have looked like, Wendigo, to name a couple, because it features a lot of the villains, and the look of the X-Men themselves comes right out of Pride of the X-Men. And he said there was no direct tie-in, just I guess the people at Konami got those designs and decided this is what we use for the game.
yeah, I mean, it's kind of like anytime there's a wrestling game, every year they try to replicate the appearance and the roster at a certain point in time. Things would change or be different, or I imagine too that they've been given concepts of things and just run with it, and then it just never comes to fruition too. So, I mean, just a cool little time capsule for that sort of thing, just having Pride of the X-Men and having the arcade game reflect the looks in that, and then nothing else ever came of it.
Yeah, because we were supposed to get toys from Pride of the X-Men, and it just the show didn't get picked up. I think that's not too long after I think the studio behind Marvel Animation, I think they went under, and of course it was picked up by Fox. That whole story is told on the Fans of Mutant Power. I'm trying to remember all the details. I'm not trying to plug the episode. I'm just saying if we're piquing your interest on the conception of Pride of the X-Men to the 90s series, all that's explained in an interview with Larry, because I'm trying to remember the details for people listening right now. But that's an idea, because I remember I started putting it together at an early age, like, wait, this looks just like the Pride of the X-Men cartoon. Because I played the game first and then came across the pilot on VHS when they were releasing a lot of the Marvel 80s shows on VHS back in the early 90s. And they would release them at Walmart or the Saturday night matinee video stores you would find in the mall. And watching the Pride of the X-Men, like, oh, this looks a lot like the arcade game. And I started wondering, like, this is what Wendigo was going to look like. And Nimrod, and it was just because Pyro, Blob, Dazzlers, Storm's look was a bit different, I think.
She had
no,
she had that darker. No, she had a darker costume. It was like black or like a dark
Yeah,
gray.
more black, whereas it looks kind of. I guess I'm sure in the cartoon it's probably done for like shading, but
Ah,
or it looks more blue in the cartoon. But yes, she essentially has got yes. God, I don't know why I drew a blank there, but everybody looks the same. Professor X, Kitty Pryde has the exact same look from Pride of the X-Men and the arcade game. Juggernaut, Magneto, Mystique. Oh, well, Mystique wasn't in the Pride of the X-Men, but had she been, I'm sure that's what she would have looked like. But still, it was just fun. That game, I remember I beat it in I think fifth grade with a buddy of mine and my brother. We spent $14 between the three of us to beat that game, and we were so proud that we done. That was the first arcade game I had ever beaten in my life. So that was a
well,
big damn deal to
and
me.
was this at Pocket Change?
Yeah, when it had moved from Jolly Time to Pocket Change, it went right next to the toy store, KB Toys.
Ah, yeah,
Yeah,
that was a
yeah.
good time. I'm sure they appreciated getting all that money from you guys.
I'm sure they did too. And we walked away just thinking, like, we are the coolest guys on the planet. It's like, if only I could come across a couple of girls in fifth grade too. That's
See,
like,
what is the fascination with thinking that like while you're sitting there,
to me,
like
it
girls
was like being,
like girls were really walking into the arcade, just stumbling in there. Oh my god, what is he? Oh man, oh he just beat X-Men Arcade.
yeah,
Take me now. It's like no,
yeah. In my mind,
no,
like that's like you think you're doing something as alpha as it possibly could be from a child's perspective in fifth grade.
no. They're
Like,
down at
it's gonna
they're
be
down
like
at
that.
Deb getting their ears pierced or something.
Well, of course, and that's what they're doing in reality. But in my mind, it's gonna be like that episode of Doug when he's like, when Skeeter's like, "Hey guys, he's gonna go for the record." So you're gonna have a crowd of like other kids around you. You're like, "Man, we're gonna stop Manu. We're gonna do it." And they're gonna hoist you up in the air, and and the girls are like, "Oh my god, I want you to go with me to my sock hop this Saturday." Like, sure, babe. It's just like that's how my mind would think as a kid. That's why Doug was such a great cartoon because I related to that because you're always fantasizing about that kind of
Now, all
stuff.
right.
At least I was.
Were you fantasizing about that before Doug, or did Doug sort of influence you having that thought of?
I had that fantasy, but when I would watch Doug, I'd be like, okay, this is natural. This is what kids do. Apparently, only a few of us did that because apparently Nathan never
No,
did anything like
I
that.
never thought that way. My whole perspective is to go in and get as far as I could in the game, and then when I got game over, I just get really pissed.
Well, that would too, because or some douchebag high school kid or college guy would say, "Oh, hey, Mortal Kombat 3 is here. Let's
No,
just pop in this quarter and crush this kid here."
that's why I normally avoided fighting games. Anytime I played fighting games, it was always the ones that showed up at like the grocery store or whatever, where the traffic with those wasn't as high as what you would find, and I would just stick to it like that. That way I would try to just avoid that altogether. But I never had that fantasy of like, man, I really hope Kelly Hodges walks in here and just sees me like dominating this game and just thinking, man, what a stud.
Yeah,
I want to go steady with him. No, I never thought
like
that
she was
way.
like she's on your arms like, guess what, guys? He beat X-Men by himself with Wolverine and only took $10. Sign my yearbook.
Oh man.
That was the mind of a young Tyler Baker. Not much has changed since. I'm still living in a fantasy world all the time anyway.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to live any other way anyway.
I could see Tyler now just driving like on his way to Kroger and just outside abandoned in one of the parking lots. It's just a Zoltar machine, and he walks up to it and he's like, I want to go back in time and get Whitney White to come by the arcade and think that I'm awesome so we can date and get married and have babies.
Yeah, all because I was so alpha that I beat X-Men with $14.
With two other people.
With two other guys, but you know what? I want him. Like now that's the sign of a true good guy for a woman. Is like if he can beat X-Men, that's the guy that a woman wants to marry.
I told you the rant on the arcade game was going to go longer than you thought it would. Because you're like, we'll just briefly touch on it.
Yeah, but I certainly didn't expect it to share my fantasies of like what it would be like to beat a game that chicks really dig. A guy that could beat a game. Because I mean, it was like it was an comic book of like this kind of dorky guy putting together a model car, but he's got two chicks like kind of like holding their hands together, like, oh man, he's so dreamy because he's putting together model cars. Like it made it look like if you put together model cars girls will think you're cool. Like, so that was my conception of all this stuff that probably would be considered nerdy at the time. And maybe, hell, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say that even in elementary school, you were considered a dork for certain things. Like being in fifth grade, like you couldn't admit that you watched Power Rangers or you liked He-Man stuff. I had to do that like in secrecy. And if you do, you're like, he's a dork. He doesn't like the baseball and all this other stupid shit.
I mean, I was into baseball as well, so
well, I mean, I liked baseball too as a kid, but that was like you only had to like sports. Like you were not allowed to, at least by the few that deemed themselves like, what was considered so cool back then. But anyway, we're here to discuss the unstoppable Juggernaut. Jesus Christ. God, what a rant.
As Joe would say, that's kind of that's our trademark.
Yeah.
Anytime you listen to any of our shows.
But it was all about X-Men here, people. It's still maintained that.
Yeah, we stayed on topic. Usually on retro, it's just somehow we're off on some other weird tangent that has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but I enjoy it. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
Tyler's the one after we're done. It's like, why do we do that? We're supposed to? We got to stay on topic.
Yeah, I do beat myself about that, but that was still fun to showcase my naive mindset of a child, thinking that beating X-Men was going to win me a lot of chicks.
Oh man,
I'd be like Ernie Reyes, where I'm like, all right, this kid could beat X-Men. He's destined to marry Kelly Hugh and then take over Patu-san or something like that. That's something we'll have to do sometime with Beyond Riches. Surf Ninjas, dude.
Man, that honestly, that is a movie that I never even really think about until you bring it up in the conversation. Like, I think the last time I even thought about it was probably 8 years ago when you brought it up before. And also, I think that's a film that I don't even have in my DVD collection. So
what? God, I bought that probably 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's going to have to be something that I'm going to have to track down as we speak. If you're watching us live on, well, not live on you, but archived on YouTube, and you see me looking down on my phone, now I have to look up and see how much this DVD is. Watch it be like out of print. It's like $78. No, it's like $10.
That's not bad at all.
Did it ever come out on Blu-ray? It doesn't look like
I don't think so, but then I've never looked, and I really don't need to have it on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
It's a fun, silly movie from the 90s, and I thought it was a cool concept as a kid. It's just a fun, silly movie to go back and revisit.
Yeah, we'll have to. You know what? Maybe we can make it like a double bill. Do Surf Ninjas and Three Ninjas. The Ninjas craze.
That's another one I hadn't watched in years.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I could see us doing that. All right, let's get to it here. Juggernaut's been waiting long enough here. All right.
Oh, also, the rules still apply if you've caught us on episode 13. There weren't really any viable options as far as linking you guys to this episode. So if you got the DVD, pop that in. If you want to spend a couple bucks and buy it from Amazon or iTunes, go for it. But no linkage down below in the description this week. Or on this episode. I say this week like we haven't done 4 of these this week instead of the normal once a week.
Well, you never know when this person, whoever listens to it, comes across it. So
that's true. I need to be a little more like vague when I say that. And anyway, Tyler, if you want to give us the countdown, we'll get this Juggernaut going.
All right, 3, 2, 1, play. Previously on X-Men. And, of course, we will get around to doing the Island episode, which is a kick-ass episode itself with all the cameos going on and any Cable's introduction to the series as well.
Now, see, right now we're getting the replay of things that happened in the previous few episodes.
Master Mold. Yeah, and, we definitely intend to go back to Blob. This was another episode, too, when I saw this. Look at all these people in this episode here. Called himself Gambit. But yeah, I mean, it was such a solid start for the show. I mean, all the episodes. I remember as a kid, I did not like the episode Captive Hearts with the Morlocks, and I thought I hated that episode as a kid. Of course, as an adult, I think it's a great episode.
I mean, most of these I was never able to track down, like I said in the Night of the Sentinels Part 1 episode that we did. Every time I tried to watch it, it was just those same few episodes, and I just gave up.
It was quite a while, and I remember Larry confirmed it too, that they were playing the pilot for a long time, and that I think 11 o'clock block, 11 or 10 o'clock or 10:30 block on Fox for several Saturdays in a row, and then when finally Inner Magneto came on, you're like, oh my God, like a new episode and Magneto's in it, So that, I mean, it was especially when the kid, when you all is you just know it comes on at this time on Saturday morning, and you just tuning in, and for several weeks in a row, it's just Night of the Sentinels. You're just driving yourself nuts. I remember complaining about it to Josh and the Matt Hilton about, like, God, every Saturday is just Night of the Sentinels. When are we going to get some more episodes? So but this I'll never forget the impact this episode had on me too. And obviously the title card there too, but it was just
I really like going and watching these here, and it's just like was it say form? Line producer Larry Houston. Like,
yeah.
it's so cool to know that through doing Fans of Power that you guys have created communication with people that have dealt a lot in the properties that we grew up with, and some of the people that are heavily involved in the Masters line that's going on now, and shaping that and forming that. So it's just a really cool, neat thing. I never would have thought ever that when you guys started doing Fans of Power and we started doing Beyond Retro, that it would lead to a point where it's like you have connections now.
Yeah, I didn't either, and it was just strictly like I knew who Larry was, but I didn't know, and all I knew was his connection to He-Man, because he'd done some of my absolute favorite mini comics. And when I looked him up before we did the first year, I'm like, God, he's did all this. I'm like, that opens up an entire new, world of like endless questions to ask him, and he loves to talk about it. I mean, because he's so proud of it, and rightfully so. He's behind the definitive interpretation of the X-Men in terms of media and everything like that. I mean, to me, it is the definitive version, even above anything in comic books, because it had such a great impact. The voice acting was great, great storytelling. Animation was great. It kept all the characters, true to their comic book counterparts.
P.S. That sweater that Jubilee is wearing is atrocious.
Yeah, but it definitely looks like it was a fashion of the times.
No, I know. I'm just saying, like, she's just wearing a Cosby sweater.
Well, granted, if Rogue or Storm was wearing it, I'd probably be more inclined to say, "Hey, man, you're looking pretty hot."
Well, I think I think if Rogue was wearing it, it would be like hanging off one of the shoulders.
God, hell yeah, it would.
Yeah.
I always love it look on a woman when she like bares her shoulders like that. Quite striking there. And it's like, here it is again, Wolverine on his own, like he always does, and just establishing right there that, all right, whoever did this is big.
And it's like, hey, you guys go with him, even though he's not gonna want you to.
Just knowing that they have been dealing with this for a long time, that this is what Wolverine does.
I'm going to ask you this. Is this how you kind of felt sometimes when you were talking to people? It's like, well, there he goes again. Like anytime I get like pissed off and do stuff. Because I know Keith. Yeah. I know Keith would do it a lot. He'd be like, well, that's just who he is, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, like, because I didn't have a whole lot of opportunities to like just kind of tell Josh or tell Keith or whatever, but I'm like, yeah, and it's just what he does, and not that it made it any easier,
right?
Because but you just like, okay, well, you're familiar with it, so just kind of let everyone else know. Yeah, I gotta go through this shit again.
I'm kind of surprised here that Rogue wasn't also wearing street clothes, because Storm's like wearing her dress and everything. I figured Rogue may have went and wore a dress as well, like she did before in Night of the Sentinels.
I guess that then your Storm likes to do her transformation thing, so I guess it kind of
I guess Rogue's outfit makes it look more like normal clothing, and Storm's it just doesn't do that at all.
Yeah, like Rogue is kind of wearing like a '90s outfit, so to speak, but she just happens to be ready for action. I remember when I saw this at Colossus, like I was super stoked and pumped, but also like, where's his traditional outfit? Because he doesn't wear it in the series at all. But but it did not take away the excitement I felt when Peter Rasputin shows up, and seeing this like Wolverine approach him, and I just love this so much. All this interaction
And
that we're going to be
I
seeing here.
I like this part a lot too because it does emphasize that people really just don't like the mutants at all. Like if they find out that you're a mutant, then it's automatic, just like racism, you know, and just hatred towards them. Like we'll see here in a second, dude just like is driving a cement truck towards him because he's so pissed off.
Which, unfortunately, in our society, we've heard of, or have seen stories of such ungodly atrocities against, our fellow man, and with just, God, people just need to have their asses kicked really for even thinking like that, let alone acting on another human being. But I'm sure, being, someone who's different, and you see, like, yeah, it would be great to be able to fight back against people that just have just nothing but hate and just ignorance in general. But
And Colossus just whips Wolverine's ass right here.
I know, and I like when all this is said and done, how Wolverine, is like, he could have wasted us both, but he didn't. It's like, he's like, no, because I say he's not the guy who did it. And it just, I really had wished Colossus had shown up so much more and become, it was one of those things where I felt like I know that they have a set group, but every so often Colossus would be part of the team, Nightcrawler would be part of the team, but a lot, they are just kind of on their own adventures, and the X-Men run into them every so often. Just funny, Wolverine just sitting upside down in the air. Just, you ain't what I smelled at the mansion. And I mean, and this friendship that Wolverine and Judy have, like I've always appreciated that she, she looks up to him as like a big brother, and he kind of watches over as like a little sister. That he. I mean, it's fun because they've done it in the comic books for a long time as well. Hell, they even used it in the Dark Claw spinoff from the Amalgam DC Marvel crossover. Wolverine is Dark Claw and Jubilee is Sparrow. I thought that was a really cool nod here, and just waiting, building and building and building up for the inevitable reveal of who is behind all this destruction. And Wolverine changed to his civilian clothes here. Storm looks so hot, doesn't she?
Yeah, I'm sure somewhere Joe's just like, wait a minute, I feel a tingling somewhere.
Yeah.
See, I like with Rogue, like how her belt's just drooping off to the side a little bit.
It just makes her look.
It's a nice
it's
little
a sexy
touch.
Look.
Yeah.
It adds like a bit of sass and sex appeal to her. Just
She's always got her hand on her hip and just.
Yeah, and then Storm just looks like she's ready to hang out on the beach. Like this is like, if I was on a date with Storm, that's how she would look if we were on a date in Myrtle Beach in the evening or something like that. That would be like her evening attire.
Hey, you want to go to the arcade? I'm really
could be X-Men at $14. Be my girlfriend. Maybe if I could do it $10, maybe I can get Rogue and Storm in a three-way.
Oh, wow.
At
that point, Larry's checking out this episode, and he's probably like, "All right, I'm not going to do this with these guys."
Yeah, we're making this a little too risque. Sorry, Larry. Hey, we're all comic book fanboys. If we didn't look at these beautiful women with these awesome powers, and the way that a traditional man would look at it, like
Oh yeah, no,
we're kidding ourselves. If we don't, I'm not getting vulgar with it. I'm just implying.
Yeah. I mean, as a kid, let's see, if we pinpoint this came out in '92, so we're 8 years old, about to turn 9. Even then, I'm just like, Rogue looks good.
Yeah.
And this is also a cool part when they're breaking Colossus out, and they find out Beast is over there hanging out as well.
Yeah, it's a fun little way to remember that Beast is still in prison.
Yeah, and he's just like, they're like, "Hey, we can get you out of here too." And he's like, "Nah, I'm good. I'll stay."
And that's what Beast would do.
Yeah, he's not a rule breaker or anything until he has to be.
I was like, tell Gene, thank you for the delicious cookie. He's like, God, he's such a lovable character. Like Beast is the kind of guy you would want to hang out with on a regular basis. Like the guy you could always confide in.
It's
Like,
kind of like your nice side, Tyler. How you're just like, oh, and thank them for this and thank them for that.
yeah,
And
I'll take that. Hey, if I'm going to be complimented as like being a side of Beast, hell yeah, I'll take that. Absolutely. Whereas you definitely got that Wolverine aspect, like
oh
I
yeah.
will kill all of you, bunch of morons. But I always Colossus. I just always he's always been in my top three, and I just always wanted to be able to do that. Turn my body into complete metal, just break open walls, and but still be a nice guy because I always like being nice to everybody, and Colossus is nice, but you kind of feel like when you need to kick some ass, you can do it. Only as a last resort, of course, but I just thought he is such an awesome power. Up there with Nightcrawler and Wolverine. Yeah, here we are. Dun 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 dun.
There he is.
Hell yes. God, he's so cool. I mean, as a kid, to me, Juggernaut was up there with Magneto, Green Goblin, Doctor Doom, as just being such an iconic, larger than life, no pun intended, villain. And I love his voice, like smelling money. Who doesn't like the smell of money? He's so cool. And
I
this is what
actually
I
don't like the smell of money.
what you ain't
Yeah,
American.
it just smells dirty.
Well, I'm sure certain types of money, yes, but like fresher money,
Ah,
you know,
even fresh bills, man. I'm just like, nah.
oh, it smells awesome. The Juggernaut. Like I like knowing that the X-Men have dealt with him before. And you know what? This is my kind of introduction for a villain in a movie. And I miss simple stories of trying to stop a big villain just from robbing a bank with the big bags of cash. Like that's the kind of story I want to see. I'm not really into big convoluted crazy stories of plot twists and stuff. The simplest stories are often the best stories. And this is another thing too. Just trying to stop. I mean, he's obviously trying to get Charles Xavier's attention, but he's also enjoying causing chaos and doing what he does best,
Yeah.
stealing money.
And
I
another
mean,
character that got ruined by the films.
yep. And that's why we have this. If
Yeah.
I want to watch a great Juggernaut story, I can go back and turn to the '90s X-Men series because he had some good appearances in the show. Not as many as I would have hoped, but I mean this being my favorite of all of his appearances. Um, it's just
Yeah, it's
fun.
gonna be fun
I just
watching Juggernaut lose there when he turns around and realizes all of his money's gone.
yeah. But I mean, I imagine he wouldn't notice because the money bag's got to feel so light to him anyway that he
Yeah.
wouldn't even know the money's gone. I like the music in the show too. Shuki Levy did an excellent score for the show.
I think it may have been in Night of the Sentinels Part 2 on our previous episode because I couldn't hear it as well, but I like when they slowed down the main theme a little bit. It had a
Yeah,
cool vibe to it as well.
just all this animation. Like Juggernaut looks so good in animation form. Like he looked really good in Pride of the X-Men, but this looks like it came right off of. I mean, I think of like the X-Men trading cards that Skybox put out in the '90s around this time the show came out, and Juggernaut looked a lot like this. Um, he was just such an iconic and definitive look at the character. Like just how big the helmet is, just how massive. I mean, the guy. I mean, is it? I mean,
Yep. I mean,
just like the Hulk.
he's picking up a building off of its foundation right now.
Yeah, like that's power, man. That's Juggernaut, not Vinny Jones making sure he remembers. I'm the Juggernaut, bitch. God, that was a villain
Yeah.
that was ran out of the ground pretty
Yeah,
fast.
well, I mean, it was funny when you watch the video of that, but to see it implemented in the live action, it just,
Ugh.
yeah.
Clearly, it's time that Brett Ratner was directing.
Here we go.
Tin head. This is what you're waiting to see these two come clashing. Yeah. Just
swats it
smacking
away like it's
God,
nothing.
that's awesome. Picking up a school bus. I mean, that's
I'll pick up this tank.
yeah.
All right, yeah.
And
No.
throw it. punching a tank with one hand.
Ah ha ha.
Yeah.
Here comes Cyclops to ruin everything.
Oh, of course you'd say that. Look at the chest striations and Juggernaut, man. Like, God, the guy's as alpha as it gets.
You just want to go back to the gym right now, don't you?
I do. I was actually talking to a guy at the gym the other night. His favorite comic book character in general is Juggernaut, and he was a really big guy too. And
Just bring him on the show, man.
I mean, yeah, I may have to do that. He's a big. He likes the X-Men mythology, but especially Juggernaut was his favorite. He said. I remember he referenced the Juggernaut bitch. I'm like, it was cute when I first saw it. Like when I say the first time I saw it,
and then it turns out we bring him on. That's the only thing he's seen. That would be hilarious.
Oh God, I hope that's not the case. But he did quote or say a quote from this cartoon referencing Juggernaut, which okay, he's clearly has either watched clips of it or watched the episode or owns the cartoon. I didn't dig too much, but I was like, oh, I see you're quoting Juggernaut from the X-Men cartoon. And this is how you build up a villain. You know, I just feel like for one episode that we won't see him again for a while, this is how you introduce the villain. This is how you build him up as just being this unstoppable force. You know,
and knowing that he is Xavier's brother, you can piece it together. Oh, that is why he has the helmet, and so no one can get into his head.
Yeah, and we don't even see them come face to face until the Phoenix Saga in season 2, and then we have the Juggernaut Returns, where you get the full backstory of Juggernaut and Xavier about their whole, bringing up as being stepbrothers. I mean, that's right out of the comic books. If you go watch that episode, and it's verbatim from Juggernaut's first appearance in the Uncanny X-Men series. I always hated it when Rogue would go through this because I just hated it for her because the voice actress, when she screams, you just felt so bad for her because God, she's selling it, the pain. Like
it kind of hurts your voice too, just thinking about it.
Yeah.
If that was something that was kind of easy for her to do, or if it really did put a huge strain on her, because there's some people that can sit and scream and it's fine for them.
Well, I mean, all voice actors are human, of course, so you feel like they're putting a lot of stress on their vocal cords and the throat. I mean, you can only do so much before your throat gets so raw and dry where you're like, you know what, you got to take a break. And I'm sure that a lot of them have practiced it to where, okay, when you're recording, you try and get it down to 1 or 2, 3 takes max because your throat, because all these voice recorders, they try to get them in, in a couple of sittings, and let's try and knock out, 3 or 4 episodes here when you get all the voice actors together.
Yeah. Good point. And this was also a cool way to just send him off without, putting him in jail or something like that,
Yeah, I mean, that's not something that, we'll see him again when he shows up with Black Tom Cassidy in season 2, which, it's in the comic books as well, of course, but it's just one of those things, you don't want to, a lot of these guys, they just can't be shipped off to jail, yeah. It's not one of those things.
It was a good ride around to not do your typical, he's in Arkham Asylum or blah blah blah.
He's in the local jail, in New York or something like that. It's like, it doesn't work that way. And I'm glad that, because they're larger than life characters. Even though Beast was in prison and Colossus was put in, but Colossus is not an aggressive person, so I could buy that, but I ain't gonna buy Juggernaut being thrown in some random jail cell.
Yeah, and Wolverine with the "don't know what you got till it's gone"-esque kind of speech. Never knew I cared about this dump until it was gone.
Yeah, that's a Nathanism.
Yep. And here we go again with the credits.
Yeah. always did think the 3D models look so cool, like them spinning
Oh
around
yeah,
with the.
yeah. But
They look so
also at the
cool.
same time too, I'm glad that that wasn't a direction that they went in with the
Oh God,
series. You know,
yeah.
because they could have just as easily done it this way.
Oh yeah, because back then, like when shows like Reboot came on and
Yeah.
the Spider-Man animated series were just showing like you know CGI stuff thrown in the background. Even as a kid, I'm like, this doesn't work with the 2D animation. It looked ugly, and I'm always going to take 2D animation over 3D or CGI as because that's traditional animation. That's the kind of cartoon I want to watch. Granted, Pixar can put out some nice stuff, but I'm always going to pick this kind of animation over anything else. And that is the Unstoppable Juggernaut, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Any ideas of what would be next for episode 15? Leave a little tease for anyone.
I mean, hell, I mean, could always do another X-Men episode. Could always do like the Cure, where Apocalypse shows up for the first time, or we could do Spectacular Spider-Man, which is I think arguably the best animated version of Spider-Man in terms of like storytelling and action and stuff like that. That's another possibility.
Right.
Because you do have that series, don't you?
No.
Oh, of course you don't. Thought you're a true fan. Or we could always do another Batman animated series. Hell, I'm not sure. We've done 3 X-Men episodes straight, so
Yeah, we don't have to narrow it down right now. I was just,
yeah.
so occasionally you're like, this is what I want to do next time, and I'm like, oh, okay.
You know what? We probably should do Spectacular Spider-Man. That's what we'll do. Permitting you can get your hands on it. If I have to let you borrow it, but then
Oh wait, never mind. I for some reason I'm thinking, oh, man, I feel like an idiot now. I was thinking of another version of the show. Yes, I do have Spectacular Spider-Man.
Okay, because I preached the hell out of that show when it came out. Like, dude, you gotta check out the show, man. It's awesome.
Yeah. No,
So,
we can do
maybe
it.
that's what we'll do. We'll do our first Spectacular Spider-Man episode next time. Probably
Okay.
I don't know, maybe the Shocker episode or the Doctor Octopus episode or something from season 1. Because I mean, there's maybe the symbiote episode. The Shocker episodes are pretty good. The Rhino episode is really good.
What about it's all good.
It's all good. There weren't too many duds in that show for the unfortunate 2 seasons we got. But yeah, Spectacular Spider-Man will be what we do next time. So
okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining us for episode 14. If you are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the bell so you get the notifications when we're going live. Check out the links below, the audio archive, the Podbean link if you want to take us on the road and listen to us there. Like the Facebook page. We're on iTunes under Pop Culture Network. That's where you'll find Capes and Commentaries, Beyond Retro, and the podcast that Tyler and Joe do in regards to Masters of the Universe, Fans of Power, which, man, you guys are encroaching on episode 150 for that. So that's...
Yeah.
I mean, you're still, granted, a few weeks away, but, man,
it's coming.
That's coming up soon. And, if you guys are joining us from Podbean or from iTunes, feel free to look up Beyond Retro on YouTube and give us that subscribe and leave a comment down below if you have any suggestions for what you would like for us to talk about in the future.
Yeah, because I'm looking up the shelf, and we could even do like the RoboCop series. We could do the Fantastic Four, or like the Herbie episodes or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the Rambo animated show.
Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of options we can do. Well,
endless possibilities.
Yeah, we can break the rules a little bit with it in terms of like storytelling, or like doesn't necessarily have to be a complete superhero show. So we'll bend the rules a little bit here and there. But Spectacular Spider-Man will be coming next. We'll just figure out what episode, which one will it be. Something from season 1. I will tell you that.
All righty. Well, until next time, we'll catch you guys later.
Later.